A governor returns to a colonial settlement after a 3-year absence forced by war and circumstance, expecting to find his daughter, his granddaughter, and over 100 colonists waiting for him. Instead, he finds empty houses, overgrown fields, and absolute silence. The entire population has vanished without a trace. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no explanation. The only clue is a single word carved into a wooden post, CROATOAN, and another partial word, crow, on a nearby tree. That governor was John White, the year was 1590, and the missing colony was Roanoke, located on an island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. The disappearance of those 115 men, women, and children remains one of history's most enduring mysteries. For over 400 years, historians, archaeologists, and investigators have searched for answers. Recent archaeological discoveries, DNA analysis of local populations, and advanced ground-penetrating technology are finally revealing clues, but the complete truth of what happened to the lost colony of Roanoke remains frustratingly out of reach. Welcome back to Crime Scout, True Stories. While the Roanoke mystery isn't a crime in the traditional sense, it is a mass disappearance that has never been solved, a case that predates modern investigation techniques but continues to be actively pursued with contemporary methods. Today we're examining what we know, what we've recently discovered, and whether we'll ever definitively answer the question of what happened to America's lost colony. To understand the mystery, we need to understand the context. In 1587, England was trying to establish a permanent foothold in the New World. Sir Walter Raleigh organized an expedition of 115 colonists, including women and children, to settle on Roanoke Island off the coast of present-day North Carolina. This was England's second attempt at colonization there. The first, in 1585, had been abandoned after the colonists faced conflicts with local Native American tribes and struggled with food shortages. But this second attempt was meant to be permanent, a true colony with families establishing roots. John White was appointed governor of this new colony. Among the settlers was his pregnant daughter, Eleanor Dare. Shortly after arrival, on August 18, 1587, Eleanor gave birth to a daughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. It should have been a moment of hope and new beginnings. But the colony immediately faced problems. Supplies were insufficient, relations with local tribes were tense, and the timing was terrible. They'd arrived too late in the season to plant crops. The colonists convinced John White to return to England to bring back supplies and reinforcements. White was reluctant to leave his family, but he was also the person best positioned to secure help. He departed in late August 1587, planning to return within months. But history intervened. England became embroiled in war with Spain. The Spanish Armada threatened invasion. Every available ship was commandeered for defense. Private voyages to the Americas were prohibited. John White was stuck in England, watching helplessly as months turned into years, unable to return to his family. It wasn't until August 1590, 3 full years later, that White finally secured passage on a privateering expedition that agreed to stop at Roanoke. When he arrived on August 18, his granddaughter's 3rd birthday, he found the settlement abandoned. The houses had been dismantled, not destroyed. Personal belongings, including White's own possessions that he'd left behind, were missing. Heavy items like cannons and iron bars had been buried, suggesting an organized departure rather than a sudden emergency. The protective palisade fence the colonists had built was overgrown with vines, indicating the site had been abandoned for some time. The two clues White found were the carvings. On a post at the entrance to the fort was carved the word CROATOAN. On a tree nearby was carved CRO. Before White had left, he'd instructed the colonists that if they had to relocate, they should carve their destination into a tree. If they were leaving under distress or attack, they were to include a Maltese cross symbol. There was no cross. This suggested the colonists had left voluntarily for CROATOAN, which was the name of a nearby island, today called Hatteras Island, and also the name of a friendly Native American tribe that lived there. Chief Manteo of the CROATOAN tribe had traveled to England and returned with the colonists, maintaining good relations with the English. White wanted to search CROATOAN Island immediately, but the ship's captain refused. A storm was approaching, supplies were low, and the privateers were more interested in raiding Spanish ships than searching for lost colonists. White was forced to leave, planning to return with a proper search expedition. But he never made it back. He died in 1593, having never learned what happened to his family. For the next 4 centuries, the fate of the Roanoke colonists remained unknown. Over the years, various theories have emerged. The simplest explanation, and one many historians find most plausible, is that the colonists did exactly what the carving suggested. They relocated to CROATOAN Island to live with the friendly native tribe. Supporting this theory are accounts from later colonists at Jamestown, established in 1607, who heard reports from Native Americans about people matching the description of the Roanoke colonists living among tribes in the interior. There were stories of English-speaking natives, of people with light hair and European features among tribes that shouldn't have had such characteristics. In the 1990s and 2000s, archaeologists began finding artifacts on Hatteras Island that dated to the late 16th century and showed a mixing of English and Native American cultures. Pieces of English pottery, metal tools, and other items from the right time period appeared in Native American sites. In 2020, DNA analysis of the Lumbee tribe, descendants of various native groups in the region, showed genetic markers consistent with European ancestry dating to approximately the right time period for Roanoke colonists. But CROATOAN Island might not be the whole story. In 2012, researchers examining one of John White's original maps using advanced imaging technology discovered hidden markings. When the map was photographed under different light spectrums, symbols appeared that had been covered with patches of paper. One of these symbols marked a location about 50 miles inland from Roanoke, near the Chowan River. This sparked new archaeological excavations. At this inland site, called Site X, archaeologists found European artifacts from the late 16th century, including pottery, tools, and other items that predate the Jamestown settlement. This suggests that at least some Roanoke colonists may have split into groups, with some going to CROATOAN Island and others traveling inland to establish a settlement with different native tribes. This would make sense strategically, not putting all their survival chances in one location. A darker theory suggests the colonists were killed by hostile native tribes. The English had made enemies during the first Roanoke attempt, and relations with some tribes were tense. The Spanish, who considered the region their territory, also had both motive and means to destroy an English settlement. Spanish records have been searched for any mention of attacking Roanoke, but nothing definitive has been found. The lack of bodies, the organized dismantling of structures, and the absence of a distress symbol make this theory less likely, though not impossible. Another theory proposes that the colonists attempted to sail back to England on their own. The colony had small boats, and in desperation, they might have tried to reach English ships or even cross the Atlantic. This would have been suicidal given the vessels and supplies available, and no wreckage or evidence has ever been found to support this theory. It remains one of the least likely explanations. Environmental factors may have played a role. Tree ring analysis has shown that the Roanoke settlement period coincided with the worst drought in the region in 800 years. Water and food would have been critically scarce. This environmental pressure could have forced the colonists to relocate and integrate with native populations who had better knowledge of how to survive the conditions. The most likely scenario, based on current evidence, is that the Roanoke colonists did leave voluntarily for CROATOAN Island, and possibly inland sites as well, where they integrated with Native American tribes. Over generations, they would have intermarried and been absorbed into the indigenous population. Their English identity would have faded, replaced by native culture and language. This would explain the genetic evidence, the artifacts found at multiple sites, the reports of European-looking natives, and the lack of bodies or signs of violence. But this still leaves questions. Why didn't they leave more detailed messages? Why didn't any individual colonist ever make contact with later English settlements? Why are the archaeological findings so fragmentary? The complete story remains elusive, buried in 4 centuries of soil, memory, and cultural change. This has been Crime Scout, True Stories. The Lost Colony of Roanoke represents one of history's greatest disappearances, a case where 115 people vanished from the historical record, leaving only questions behind. Modern science is bringing us closer to answers, but the full truth of what happened to Virginia Dare and the other colonists may remain forever incomplete. Subscribe for more historical mysteries where the search for truth continues across centuries.